310 West 92 Highway in Kearney. The phone number is 816-628-6666. And now here's the hosts of Kearney Live, Mike Davis and Jim Dickerson.
I love that studio audience. I love you all. Yeah, we have 5 in here today. Yeah, 5 that clap pretty loud. I like that. Welcome to Kearney Live. I'm your host, Mike Davis, along with Jim Dickerson, my good friend and co-host of the show. And how could we forget Brian Watts? I didn't forget you, Brian. Yep. There it is.
Did you notice that fewer people clap for Brian?
Well, I think they gave him the golf clap just to be polite so that he can actually get through what he does here in front of us as he works the board. Yeah, it's very...
But thank all of you, and the ones of you up in the balcony, too. Thank you very much.
Yeah, get that guy to stop throwing popcorn, too, if you would. Yeah, they make a mess in here. It's really a big cleanup job that, of course, Brian takes care of when they all leave. But a lot like cleaning up a movie theater. The floors are sticky. It's a mess. So, yeah. So we are here. Of course, it's Kearney Live, and it is the one of very few, but several really good live shows that we do here. And we were talking about that just a moment ago with our guest who will be with us just shortly, and that is Doug Ervin. And Doug is a candidate for Clay County Commission, and that would be in the, the Eastern Commissioner. And we'll be talking to him about some things that many of you perhaps have been following in the Clay County government, and that my partner co-host Jim Dickerson knows quite a bit about, and he brings a good deal of knowledge about that to this show because we've had several other guests talking about some of the things going on in the Clay County Commission.
That is correct. So we'll get to that in just a few minutes for those of you who have joined us. But first, before we do that, we want to talk to you a little bit about the expanding interest in the MyTuner radio app, because a lot of people have been trying to listen to their shows well outside the area and actually in other states and that sort of thing. And so for those of you who are not familiar and you want to listen to the station anywhere in the world, go to the MyTuner radio app. For those of you who are watching us on the video portions of the program, you can see it on your screen. As I always say, if you're listening to us on the radio, please don't look down at your car little screen because it's not going to be there. Although we're working on that technology, but car dealers don't seem to think it's a good idea. But anyway, join us on the MyTuner radio app, and you can listen to 102.7 anywhere in the world. That becomes very important. Not only for these shows, but we know that the sports network, the Bulldog Radio Network, those programs are widely listened to, and we have basketball season coming up. And tomorrow night, you can join us out at the Jamboree that'll be going on. That's actually, we're hosting that. Well, we're not the radio station, but the high school is hosting it. It's actually at the Kearney High School facility. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, Andy Martins and Dan Herman will be there as well. Those guys do a great job with the basketball broadcast, and they'll be there tomorrow. So come on out and support your Bulldogs. We'll be there. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow night out at the Jamboree. And then for the rest of you who are following the Shop Local campaign, let's go to Mike Davis, and he can talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Jim. We talk about Shop Local, and I think a lot of neighborhoods and I should say small communities talk about it. As you are close to large metropolitan areas, it's very tempting to drive away to a big box store and say, I'm just going to go find what I need somewhere else. But I think a good deal of the folks here in Kearney, Missouri know that there are very good and viable stores in this area right here in Kearney where you can keep your money, which keeps it going to work for very, very important things like the school district, like infrastructure, like parks. It helps our community be a better place to live, work, and play. And having said that, we have been fortunate enough to work together in partnership with your Kearney Chamber of Commerce to put together this Shop Local campaign, and there are a ton of fun things going on with it right now. I think Brian has a video queued up of one of our local businesses taking the Shop Local pledge. Let's have a look.
Hi, everybody. Jim Dickerson with 102.7 FM KPGZ on behalf of the Kearney Chamber of Commerce and the Shop Local campaign. I'm here with Randy Pogue, more importantly, Mayor Randy Pogue of First Missouri Bank. And Randy, tell us why it's so important that people shop local.
You know, Jim, it's important to shop local because when you're supporting the businesses in the Kearney community, it's those businesses that give back to the community, whether it's donating to civic organizations, sponsoring teams, sponsoring events. So when you're shopping local, you're keeping the money in the community. Like I said, it's the local businesses that support the local people.
And would you be able and willing to take the Shop Local campaign pledge?
I would.
When you shop locally, you support Kearney businesses who in turn help make our community a better place to live, work, and play. Our schools, parks, neighborhoods, and charitable organizations thrive as a byproduct of hard-working local entrepreneurs and people like you who choose to do business with them. Your Kearney Chamber of Commerce encourages you to shop local in Kearney.
This is Randy Pogue with First Missouri Bank, and I pledge to shop local in Kearney whenever possible. We took the pledge.
Hey, Randy, do you really mean that?
Are you serious? Like, this is, do you really mean that? This is part of it?
It is.
So obvious. That's funny every time I see it because
caught him a little bit off guard.
You did.
On that
Randy
one,
Pogue was just completely caught off guard, and he was having none of that. Which we get a variety of reactions. We don't ask everybody that question. When we do, though, generally, people are prepared with an answer, and every time
let me get out in front of this right now, Randy. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh man, no. Well, before we put this particular video, before we posted it, I made sure that he saw the ending and the little outtake, I guess, as it were, and he said, "Absolutely, run with it." So he was. Thank you, Randy, for being really very good-natured about this. We had a lot of fun with it, so we'll keep doing that. Jim, let's move along here. I think I'd like you to help me introduce Doug Ervin here. Let's talk about that.
Well, first of all, just for a little bit of background, I know a lot of people have followed these programs, and for those of you who would like to catch up, there's a number of ways to do that. So we had Jerry Nolte in studio. We also had Barry McCullough in studio. We've talked about this quite a bit, but it's all the, for lack of better words, the controversy that's going on at Clay County. So for those of you who want the full details, you can go to our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and watch the videos there of those interviews. You also can go to our website at 1027carneymo.com and go to the podcast page, check on Kearney Live, and you can actually listen to the podcast where we talk to Jerry and Barry and all the folks, and it gives you complete background of what's going on in Clay County. So for those of you, just a real quick bring you up to speed, there were a number of citizens about a year ago, a little over a year ago, who had concerns, and Jerry Nolte was also concerned at the time, and this is before he ran for presiding commissioner. They were concerned about some of the spending practices and basically the economics of the Clay County government. Long story short, an audit was supposed to be performed, and ever since that audit has been allowed to proceed, it was decided that it would proceed. Two of the commissioners have blocked it at every turn, and it's not just the commissioners; it's the some of the staff people as well. Jerry Nolte is the presiding commissioner, and he has talked about a lot of the problems they've had. If you've watched in the news, there was a lawsuit filed. The sheriff filed a lawsuit because they're having problem getting funding. The lawsuit, the result was that the sheriff's department should get their funding. Then there was an appeal. There was a proceeding that said that the audit should go forward. Now we're trying to block that. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. The weird thing is that in something like this, and I ask this every time, what's the end game? What are we doing here? What are we trying to hide? What are we not trying to hide? What do we not want people to know? The fact of the matter is that if you live in Clay County, this is your money. You should know what's going on. So what we've tried to do here is allow people to come in and, in the case of like Jerry Nolte or whatever, explain and keep the Clay County citizens up to speed on what's going on. We also have people now that are running for positions that will come up for election next year, and that's what we're going to do here today. But you know, I got to be honest, Mike. I'm totally baffled over this whole thing. It's an audit. Let the audit. You know, I said it on a show a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
If it were me or a business I had, and you want to audit it, knock yourself out. Other than the fact there's always the inconvenience that comes with an audit. I don't have anything to hide. Motor on. Do what you do.
Right.
I don't understand it here. So I'm glad to see that there are some people who are willing to and wanting to run for these offices to try and fix this.
Yeah, and Doug Ervin, first of all, welcome to the show. We're really glad that you decided to come on with us, and it is nice to see a citizen stand up and say, "I'd like to be a force for change, and change for the better." It would appear to me, as you run for Eastern Commissioner here in Clay County. You mentioned, I do want folks to get to know you just a little bit. So you mentioned earlier that before we went on the air that you were a Kearney resident. You were raised here, born in this area.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mike and Jim, for having me today.
You bet.
Yeah, I was born here, raised here in Clay County. Both sides of my family go back, oh gosh, a long time.
Yeah.
Multi-generations.
Uh-huh.
So I grew up here in Kearney, went to Kearney High School. I didn't go very far to go to college. I went to William Jewell in Liberty.
Outstanding, yeah.
And following that, ended up working at Cerner Corporation in North Kansas City.
Very good.
So my professional life really has never left Clay County either, other than business travel.
Right.
And raised family here. You know, kids, of course, they're not all here now, but
yeah, I know,
kids
I know
grow
the
up
feeling.
and do their thing.
Yep.
But no, it has been just a wonderful community, and it's a great place to live. And one of the things I love about Clay County is we still have a lot of communities that are separated by a lot of green space.
Yeah.
And every community has its own identity, has their own traditions, and you don't have to go very far to know that you're someplace else, but you're still in Clay County.
That's
and
true.
It's really cool to do that. You're just not some homogenous type of thing that place you live. It's actually has character everywhere you go.
Yeah, and the fact that you are a product of several generations, or at least a couple of generations here in Kearney, says no doubt a lot about your character. I mean, we see that, and we talk about it all the time here on the show. We, great schools and a great culture here in the town, and we've had kids from sports teams on here, and we've been able to interview them, and they're just perfect manners, and we've had business owners tell us how great the kids are who work for them. So all of that to say that your background would suggest that you would share in that level of character, I would imagine. Now, at some point, you made a decision to run for this office, for Eastern Commissioner here in Clay County. What is your thinking process that led you to say, yep, I'm going to do it, I'm ready to file now? Talk to us about that.
Well, I decided to run, or well, put it this way, I began thinking about running last year.
Mm-hmm.
First conversation I had was actually with Jerry Nolte about it. And prior to that, I swore I would never be involved in county government, in Clay County government. It has just been, it does not have a history of a great place to be in terms of serving. And I remember, I'm a former state representative. I was first elected in 2002. And you go down to Jeff City. And of course, people are going to ask you, where are you from? And so I'm from Clay County. And I would get one of two responses every time. They would either roll their eyes at me, or they would laugh at me. And so Clay County has had this reputation statewide for a long time. Well, many of the things that Jim mentioned that have been going on, really, I mean, this is home. We've got to do something different. So I got to thinking about maybe I should break my pledge of never getting involved with Clay County politics.
So it sounds like you did.
And do something about it. So I met with Jerry it was after his last election, and I asked him 2 questions. And the first question was, and Jerry and I have known each other for a long time. I said, look, if I do this, can we still be friends when this is over? Because politics does strange things to people. We've seen with the current commission. And I'm at a stage in life where friendships are actually more important to me than other things. And he said, that's not going to be a problem, Doug. We will work through that. It'll be good. And I said, well, my second question then is, can we actually get anything done? Because I have no interest in going through this process and being elected and sitting in a chair for 4 years and not accomplishing anything. And he said, we can get some things done. And we began then started to talk about what could the future look like. And Jerry and I also served together on the executive board for the Clay County EDC. So we see a lot of what's going on in the county, population growth-wise, business coming in and out of Clay County, kind of the needs of the county in that respect. Some of the strategic planning that's been going on around quality of life and other things. So it's kind of a natural fit to continue down that road and put your name out and serve. So I had a number of conversations with people afterwards, and I asked most of them, if you can talk me out of it, talk me out of it. But we had some very blunt conversations with people about what it would mean to run and what we need to accomplish to do that.
Go ahead,
so let's kind of dive into the big question is, I mean, you see what's going on. Clearly, you and Jerry talked a bit about it. What's your overall assessment of what's going on right now? And quite frankly, and I talked to Barry about this when he was in here a couple of weeks ago too. Like you said, the public opinion of Clay County government right now is very, very low. Why? What are you going to do? I mean, how do you attack this problem? And it's a big problem. It's not just like something you're going to walk in tomorrow and fix.
We're talking about trust.
Yeah.
Trust is the main thing,
right?
I mean, right now we have the voters of this county and citizens of this county, they don't trust Clay County government,
right?
They lack confidence in Clay County government. So when I look at it, I think, well, what is it? What are the things that they've been doing that is betraying that trust in the community? And you kind of get back to this basic government 101 type of stuff, things you probably learned in your civics class. And
if you were paying attention.
If you're paying attention.
Right. So
I look at it in it's several categories. I mean, what are we doing in regards to, the rule of law, checks and balances, transparency, accountability, accessibility. Those are the key tenets of what good government should look like. And we're also talking about local government. So this isn't like people going to some faraway place and you might have to send an email or a phone call or spend a day or two traveling to see them. You just go down the road. You're going to see them in the grocery store. You're going to see them at church very regularly. Just right there, very accessible, or should be. So it really comes down to what I broadly say, look, we have an ethics issue with the county and how we perform. So I look at it as an elected official has what I would consider a moral duty and an obligation to determine right and wrong on behalf of constituents. We live in a country where we have a representative form of government. We elect people to make decisions on our behalf. The main accountability aspect of that is our elections. Doing a good job, you're reelected. Not doing a good job, somebody else is going to win. We have to get back to that. But for the county to move forward, we have got to reestablish the trust that exists in the county. And when you look at the way the behavior of elected officials, and I don't care whether it's county level, state, or federal, whatever, but you really have to, at least in this case, we have to think about professionalism, decorum, and decency. Yeah. And it's, why do I even have to say decency? Right. But it's really decorum, professionalism, and decency. And that's what we have to get back to. And it's creating a culture around that, not just on the commission, but in all the offices.
So when you talk about that, and we talk about trust, and we talk about we talk about transparency and all these words you hear about. Mm-hmm. First of all, if you were elected, and the election's not till November of next year, but just so people know, if you were elected and you were, let's say you were in the position with what's going on right now, is there any reason you would not want this audit to go through? That's been the big point of controversy for the last year.
If there's nothing to hide here, then why would you oppose the audit? The audit needs to go forward. It needs to get done, and the findings will be what the findings are. And the commission will need to deal with those findings and be held accountable by the people of this county.
So I guess one of my questions is with that, and I don't understand this, and I'll ask it, but I honestly am not expecting. I'd be surprised if you know. Why would you? Why do we fight it? What's the holdup? If you've done, I'm not. Don't take this wrong. I'm not saying, but if someone's done something wrong or something that they're not proud of, or they made a mistake, or they did something they weren't supposed to, eventually it's going to come out. I mean, this audit, one way or another, this audit is going to happen. It's going to be done. Putting it off is getting us nowhere, other than it's, number one, destroying the trust that people have in the Clay County government. And number two, it's actually hurting people because we're going through the issues with the sheriff's department and all that. I think the sheriff's department, I use that because I think that's the most visible. That's the thing that people see the most of. There are other areas where the citizens of Clay County are not getting a fair shake. Can you think of any reason why this is being put off, and what do we gain by putting it off other than destroying trust?
I don't know why they're putting it off, but it is a pattern of the way that we've seen the current commission behave over the last few years. When you look at the consolidation of duties from other elected office holders into the commission, whether it be, open records request, the taking of minutes, just a number of different things. And of course, believed to be the genesis of the sheriff's issue with the funding is really retribution for a investigation that was done, and that had to do with document tampering. I mean, why would we have to go that far? I mean, why are we taking a pair of scissors and cutting somebody's name off of a public document? So there's some motivations behind that I don't understand, but the actions are speaking for themselves, and that's why the audit was called for, and we need to get to the bottom of what that is.
No doubt about that. We're visiting today. We've got Doug Ervin. He's an Eastern Commissioner. You are running for Eastern Commissioner here in Clay County, Doug, and that's great to have you on the show. You're listening to Kearney Live. Let's take a break.
A special thank you going out to underwriters like these for their support of KPGZ.
Simplify your banking, simplify your life. It's easy with Kearney Trust Company. The world has become fast-paced, and we understand that you are busy. That's why we offer a banking experience that's as simple and stress-free as can be. Kearney Trust goes beyond convenient locations and good customer care to offer banking services that make managing your finances quicker and easier than ever before. Online, bill pay, e-statements, and mobile banking are available to give you a positive banking experience so you can get back to your life and activities. Kearney Trust also provides capital to people and businesses so they can achieve their goals. Whether you know exactly what you want or just need someone to talk to about your dream, you can speak with them and work on that dream. You may just be getting off the ground or ready to move into your brick and mortar building. Kearney Trust will provide you and your business with the resources you need to succeed. Kearney Trust Company is your partner for success with 2 convenient locations in Kearney at 310 West 92 Highway and 701 Watson Drive in Price Chopper. The phone is 816-628-6666. Kearney Trust Company. Banking you can trust. Member FDIC.
And welcome back to Kearney Live. For those of you just joining us, Doug Ervin's with us on the program today. We're talking about Clay County government and all the things that have been going on over there. Most recently, the audit. For those of you who didn't see it, I believe it was yesterday. Now there's another problem with the Clay County Sheriff's Department. It is not a problem with them directly. It has to do with funding that they were supposed to receive, $280,000. There's a lot of finger pointing going on again, as usual. Luann Ridgway this morning said that it was actually the fault of an independent firm that didn't do what they were supposed to do. The firm is saying that the county didn't give them what they're supposed to have, and back and forth we go. The bottom line is that we're going to be $280,000 short now, and that's on top of everything else we've had going on with the Sheriff's Department. Again, like I said earlier, the Sheriff's Department is only one aspect of this. I think it's the most public one that you see most commonly. So, Doug, back to you. Sheriff, funding of your public safety is, in my opinion, is key. Let's just start basic. You're elected tomorrow. What do you do? Now let's back up a step, because one thing that we learned from Jerry, and because he's the only one that's working on there now, this issue of documents and audit blocking and all this is not just limited to commissioners. It goes deeper than that. And for those of you who remember when Jerry was in here, he talked about something that I've never heard of before. So as a government employee, if I want a document, I just go, I get the document as it relates to. Jerry has to fill out a sunshine request and pay money, and he's the presiding commissioner. This makes no sense to me. So we've got a number of people within the Clay County government working to hinder all this stuff and all that, which is a huge obstacle to someone who would be newly elected, such as yourself, if you were to win. So how do you start? How do you go in? How do you start to rebuild the government and rebuild that trust?
Well, you do have to start looking at those specific issues. And a lot of that, there was a time with the county administrator when the commission said put in their contract, they just offloaded a lot of commission responsibilities to the county administrator. I don't know if Jerry mentioned it was time. I don't know if it's still true, but he couldn't even get into his own office without their permission. Ridiculous.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. If you're an elected official and you have an office, you'd better have a key to that office and be able to get that office whenever you want to. Mm-hmm. And you're right. If you are a county official, elected official, and you want a document, there are no hoops to go through. You request the documents delivered to you. That's the way it works in all other governments. So one thing I've always learned as I've dealt with government over the years is employees of government, they do what they're told generally. So they're not doing this on their own. They're being instructed, this is how you're going to behave based on all these requests that you get. This is how you're going to do it. So you have to get back into that. And it may be related to the contracts that they have, the employment contracts they have. Those will have to be revisited on how we go forward with that. Just the rules and processes that exist in the office, you can redo that. If there are ordinances that were passed, you can rescind those ordinances. Mm-hmm. But it takes homework and it takes some time to get it done. But it doesn't take a lot of time to get it done. If you know where to go immediately, there's a lot you can get done in that first 30 days.
This is a very interesting election, Mike, because normally when you have a politician or someone who's running for an elected office, they come in and their whole stance is, I'm going to create jobs and I'm going to get rid of unemployment and I'm going to do this and we're going to build big buildings and all this stuff. The people that we've had in here recently that are running for the Clay County positions are all talking about the same thing. We've got to fix this.
We got to build trust.
We've got to fix it, and we've got to build trust.
Right.
Which are, number one, a lot of political campaigns are just, you say whatever it takes to get elected. I'm going to create jobs. I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to create 10,000 jobs.
Right.
There's 7,000 people in the city, but I'm going to create, all that stuff.
Right.
But this is so back to basic, and from an election standpoint, it's almost laughable as the whole thing is turning into be. that the people who are coming in here that want to run for these positions are simply saying the same thing. We want to fix this.
Right. And a reasonable person would look at what's going on. And if there are county employees and I don't know if there are appointees from the commissioner level. There are some, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're standing in the way of getting the documentation or whatever it takes to help uncover whatever it is that's going on. A reasonable person would look at that and say, they look complicit in whatever this is that's going on. Am I wrong about that?
Well, they make the rules. And that's one of the key things here is that if you're an elected official, especially if you're on a commission or any lawmaking body, any policy-making body, you're making the rules. And those that work on behalf of that, whether it be the administration or the executive branch, what do you want to call it, those are the rules that they follow. They don't make stuff up.
Right. So they do it. They do what they're told, as you say.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a little bit of a problem with this, and here's the thing.
It's about integrity, and
well, it's not only integrity. It's this. And governments are the best at doing this. They put out these videos or these little training things, and you only can do what's right, and you need to stand up when something's wrong, and
yes.
blah blah blah.
Yes.
My personal opinion is that following someone down a path of doing things that is absolutely wrong,
right,
is not going to end well. Now, maybe all these folks have the world's greatest retirement program and it doesn't matter to them. But I look forward to, and I've asked this before, I look to the future. What are all these? This is it. It's not like all this is going to go away. We're not going to wake up 3 weeks from now after 4 weeks. When's Christmas? 4 weeks now. It's coming up too quick. I can tell you that.
Yes.
But everybody's not going to wake up all of a sudden and just forget that the audit's going on. Right. It's just not going to happen. This is going to happen. It's not going to end well for somebody. There comes a point where you got to stand up and do what's right. And this thing of, with Commissioner Nolte and having to request documents and pay for them and all this, that, and the other, I don't get it. And now, the sheriff's department, the lack of funding they have going on over there. So anyway, that's enough of my rant. Back to you.
Well, let me just kind of follow up a little bit. I want folks to know a little bit more about Doug. I think I would agree, Jim. I think a good portion of our listening audience and folks in Clay County share our feelings and suspicions about this whole mess. It's one of those things, and I've done a lot of government stuff before. I've never seen anything like it, and I honestly, and as most people who know me would say, I'm speechless on the deal. Yeah,
and it's rare. I get it, but I just don't understand where we're going. I don't understand what the point is.
Let me just kind of read a little section here from Doug Ervin's Facebook page here, and this is Doug Ervin for Clay County Commission. There's a paragraph here. It says, Doug is the only candidate to beat Ridgeway-endorsed candidates, and he will do it again. It's time for a candidate with business experience and a proven track record to change Clay County. Now, it says here that you have, and I'm reading this is not an endorsement. I'm just reading this. Anybody else that's running again for commissioner, if you want to come on this show, we'll have you on. It says you have business experience and a proven track record. And when I read a sentence like that, I want to hear it. I want to hear about that. I want you to be more specific as if I were in Clay County as a voter. Talk to us about that, Doug.
Just my business experience.
Yeah, would you? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I left school, college. I had a double major in mathematics with data processing emphasis and business administration. And at that time, IT was really coming into its own.
Yeah.
So I went to work at Cerner, and I was a programmer at that time. We programmed in COBOL then. That's considered an ancient language now. But I still remember some of it. And had the great...
I hear 80s music.
Yes, absolutely. And I had a great experience, learned a lot about business processes, in particular the area that I was programming in. Did that for 12 years, programming, design, database design, ran teams, had to deal with people, manage work, all that. Took a little part-time business full-time, which was an animal damage control company, just completely nothing related to IT, and had a great time with it. And next thing I knew, my name was on the ballot in 2002. When I finished that time, it was term limited. I decided to go back to Cerner. There's been some life events that took place that I really need to get a real job, and had 3 little girls to raise at the time, and so went back, and the role I'm at essentially in now, and have continued to work with Cerner in the public space, and everything from figuring out what the plan is, the engagement, the execution, the staffing, you name it. And working with government, I get to see both sides of it, their processes, which are, we call them processes, but
right.
There are other things. You can call them other things. There's a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy, and various things. But actually, one of the ideas that I had, we was talking about this notion of ethics. One of the areas that I wanted to address as a commissioner is around how we do county procurement. And this is a simple idea. It's not expensive to do, but I want to add a bid requirement to county procurements. And each vendor would be required, as part of their bid, to submit a disclosure form. And the disclosure form would simply disclose some things that are already public, like, did you give political contributions to any elected officials? Have you have any business relationships with them? Do you serve on any boards or commissions with them? Have they been an employee of you before? Are there any familiar relationships out to a certain degree? Did you lobby for the procurement? If so, who was the lobby? Just some basic things. And there's nothing inherently wrong with any of those. If you have any of those relationships, this is local government. We're going to know people. So that, I think, will at least stop people to think. If I'm a bidder and I know I have a relationship, I should probably not interact with them around something. And if I am an elected official, I should probably not interact with people I know that are bidding on certain projects.
Yeah, and you bring up a lot of good points, and we'll get back into that and a few more things. Also, don't forget that along with these bidding procurements and all that, you also have to pay bills. And Clay County forgot to pay a few of those. We'll talk more about that when we come back. You're listening to Kearney Live. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Making our programming possible on KPGZ are these fine underwriters.
Simplify your banking, simplify your life. It's easy with Kearney Trust Company. The world has become fast-paced, and we understand that you are busy. That's why we offer a banking experience that's as simple and stress-free as can be. Kearney Trust goes beyond convenient locations and good customer care to offer banking services that make managing your finances quicker and easier than ever before. Online, bill pay, e-statements, and mobile banking are available to give you a positive banking experience so you can get back to your life and activities. Kearney Trust also provides capital to people and businesses so they can achieve their goals. Whether you know exactly what you want or just need someone to talk to about your dream, you can speak with them and work on that dream. You may just be getting off the ground or ready to move into your brick and mortar building. Kearney Trust will provide you and your business with the resources you need to succeed. Kearney Trust Company is your partner for success with 2 convenient locations in Kearney at 310 West 92 Highway and 701 Watson Drive in Price Chopper. The phone is 816-628-6666. Kearney Trust Company. Banking you can trust. Member FDIC.
welcome back to Kearney Live. For those of you just joining us, Doug Ervin's in studio with us. He is running for one of the commission seats coming up next November. And if you're outside, you shouldn't be, because you want to be listening to our program. But after the program, nice 60-degree day outside and about 7 degrees tomorrow. So we've got that to look forward to. For those of you who just joined us, we've been talking about the Clay County government and some of the issues over there. And then I mentioned before we went to break a couple of things. Number one was, don't forget, this seems to transpire. It happens so every time you think, I mean, this whole thing started with a coffee maker. For those of you who remember that, if you don't, you can go back and look at the previous shows and we talk about that. And
that was laughable.
It was funny then.
Right.
And as we keep going deeper and deeper, we learn all these different things. One of the big things that came out was that a bill hadn't been paid. And I'm not talking a bill for $20. Mm-hmm. This was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And then there were late fees, and nobody could figure out how this bill didn't get paid. These late fees and all that, that's your money. That is your money, folks. And so now we're looking at the latest issue, which came out just yesterday, $280,000 supposed to go to the sheriff's department. Now, we may or may not see that. It looks to me like, I think if I remember right, the deadline's Friday. And I didn't see anybody positively speaking like, yeah, we'll make it no problem. Everything I saw was like, yeah, I don't think we're going to make that. It's $280,000 that was supposed to go to your sheriff's department. It's got to be covered somewhere. Again, it's your money, folks. So we're going to need some people to fix it. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I'm going to reiterate what Mike said. For those of you who are running, if you want to come in here and state your position, give Brian a call. We'll get you on a show. And I would say Jerry Nolte has been in here. He's been very forthcoming, very straightforward, and answered every question we asked as the presiding commissioner about what's going on. And I will extend, I've done it before and I'll do it again, I'm extending an invitation to Gene and Luann. If you guys want to come in here and talk about your position, please give us a call. We'll get you on the program. But until then, Doug, we talked a little bit about, where we're going, how do we fix this, but we've got to get the trust back. And, this election is different because, most people are going to create jobs or they're going to do all this. We got to get this county back on track, and we got to look down the future. How are we going to do that?
Well, we do have to get our basic house in order, and it's unfortunate that we're at that point. I mean, it's basic government 101. We should not be there. We should be beyond that, but that's what we're going to have to do. So once we get that done, and yes, you have to address wasteful spending, and you have to address all these lawsuits, and you have to address just how do you regain the trust and confidence in the people? Mm-hmm. So that has to happen. But once you do that, then we can start talking about the really exciting things about the future of Clay County. And you look at some of the basic statistics. I mean, we have over 240,000 people in the county. You've got an assessed valuation. It's $3.725 billion. It's projected that we'll gain 1.9% in population each year for the next 10 years. Wow. If you do that math, that's multiple Kearneys in the next 10 years.
That puts it in perspective.
It does put it in perspective, but you also think about the census and what that means for some of the redistricting, not just congressional and state, but also the city of Kansas City, which is in Clay County. And you look at, would we get another circuit court or not? I mean, there's a lot of implications to our growth. Mm-hmm. And we're not thinking about all of that because we have all this other stuff that's in the way. And the only way you blaze a trail is you clear brush. We got to clear the brush first. And once we do that, then we can head down the trail. But that's where I'm looking way out in the future on how do we set the table so we can go and do that. And right now we're stuck.
You bring up a good point. So you look to the future, but the interesting thing about this is there's things that you're going to have to take into account in the future that are not easy fixes. And so one I'll bring up is the annex building. Mm-hmm. I have my personal opinions on the annex building, but you're taking something that by the time you get elected, if you were to get elected, is already done. Or it's so far in the works that you're not going to back out of it. It's not like we were going to buy 300 golf carts. Now we don't need 300 golf carts, so we'll just cancel the contract. We're talking about a building, a structure, property. All this stuff will be well in motion, well underway. It would actually be financially not feasible at that point to reverse from it, and maybe that's why they forced it through like they did. How do you deal with that? I mean, how do you fix things that are so far down the road? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, some of those are just going to be, how do you make lemonade out of lemons, right? If the annex is progressed to the point where it simply can't be reversed, they've incurred so much debt that you have to pay it back, and you're obligated to do it. So we'll just have to make the best of it. For those things that can be turned back in a reasonable, hopefully at no cost, or maybe at a reasonable cost, then you make the hard decisions and you do those things. But we have, they have essentially the authority to put us in $50 million worth of debt. Voters didn't vote on whether they wanted to do that or not. So there's a lot of questions on what can we back out of and what do we have to stick with.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. For those of you who don't remember the 50, is it 57, 54 million?
I want to say it's in the 52-ish range.
Yeah, let's call it 50.
Yeah. Nice
round number. Because, when you're in the millions, 50, 52, what's $2 million among friends?
I have no concept.
Oh, really? I thought
saying.
big-time radio show hosts like you. But anyway.
Exactly. That's why we're here. It's the money.
So, that's $50 million of... That's another thing that you, as a newly elected commissioner, would inherit that you have to fix. How do you fix that? And I don't, I hope, because as we come up on these shortfalls, and I use the sheriff's department because it's, again, the most visible, I don't want them taken out of that $50 million. Don't get me wrong. I want the sheriff's department funded, and it should be funded. I think that is a key element. However, I don't think you, in this case, rob Peter to pay Paul, and you take money out of that $50 million. Oh, we've got $50 million over here. It's almost like you talked about civics class. It's almost like when you're a kid and you're like, well, I can write a check. I've still got checks in my checkbook. It doesn't matter if you have money in there. You have checks. I don't think the county should be taking money out of this $50 million thing to just pick up on shortfalls for things that we should have done properly.
It's not the proper use for it. And I go back to this, one-time funding sources should never be used for ongoing expenditures because you just dig yourself further and further in the hole. So I treat it as a one-time funding source. Those things that we can reverse, we should reverse. Those that we can't, we have to live with and make the best of it that we can. I will say one point on the sheriff's department and the issues that are going on with that. One of the other people I talked to early on was the sheriff and one of the candidates for sheriff, and they brought up early on to me about the issue with the shortfall, the cuts that they did, the lack of resources they have to pay for housing or the clothing, food, healthcare for the offenders, and based on my work at Cerner, I will tell you that the risk that they're putting the county in, you get an activist that files a lawsuit against that, and it goes to a judge. We're going to be hit for a much larger bill than the cuts that are being made. So just the risk that they're willing to put taxpayers in on that just to make their own point is just beside me. It's baffling.
Well, so for those of you who are keeping track of this too, you want to join us two Wednesdays from now. I think Will Aiken is on the program. Is that right, Brian?
Well,
yeah, not next Wednesday. I think it's the Wednesday after. We'll look that up and we'll be right back with you. But however,
he's a good guest and he will continue to be a good guest.
But he's running for sheriff, so we'll get some insight from him. And he, like everybody we've had in here, very transparent, very forthcoming. But as someone who, as a new commissioner, and you would be there for some time, it is very probable that at some point you may have to go to the citizens and ask for more money in the sense of a tax increase or something like that. What kind of an obstruction or what kind of a burden is it, or what is how difficult is it to go to those citizens after everything that's going on here now and say, yeah, we need more money? How are you ever going to be able to do that?
I just don't think you can at this point. I can't see why the voters of this county would pass any increase, whether it be a property tax or a sales tax, to fund anything else. And I'm not advocating for that either. I'm actually one of those low tax guys. I mean, just get tax as low as we can and fund the basic services. Sheriff's Department is a basic service.
Yeah.
That you can talk about a lot of other things, but you got to have a sheriff's office.
Again, reasonable person test right
yes,
there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, where do you want your tax money to go first?
Right.
How about to protect your family?
I think that is a great place to be.
Right. Hey, I want to, while we're on this ethics question here, you have an ethics package here, Doug, that talks about campaign finance rules, and you indicated that you'd like to close the loopholes here in Clay County by introducing an ordinance that will align Clay County campaign finance rules with the constitutional limits overwhelmingly supported by voters by setting the contribution limit for county office to $2,500, the same amount as a state senator. So the implication there is pretty clear that Clay County is still, I think as you put it down here, still in the wild, wild west of being able to raise, I guess, take as much money as you want for
currently unlimited.
Wow,
and that's actually true in most local municipalities, most local jurisdictions in the state.
Well, I just learned something.
So in 2016, voters had the opportunity to vote on Amendment 2, and then in 2018, we had the opportunity to vote on Amendment 1, which was called Clean Missouri. They established contribution limits. Amendment 2 also, Amendment 1 also established the lobbying gift rule. The loophole in that was that it did not apply, even though it's in the Constitution, it did not apply to county or local offices.
Well, you wonder about that. Just sounds like an oversight.
Yeah.
Or somebody who very specifically said, I want that wording in there because I need more campaign money.
I would say it's an example of why initiative petitions aren't always the best way to go.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't vetted.
Okay.
So the legislature could close that loophole statutorily if they chose, but so can each local jurisdiction. So the county has the opportunity to do that themselves. So I will be introducing an ordinance that would limit county office holders to contribution to $2,500. I've actually taken that a pledge for myself that I'm not taking any contributions greater than that amount, as set the example for it in this election, and then also mirror the lobbying gift rule as well. So currently it's unlimited. Anybody, a lobbyist, can take out any county elected official to wherever they want. Wherever they want. This has to be reported. It does have to be reported.
Sure.
But it can be wherever they want, whatever they want.
And it's perfectly legal. But
perfectly legal.
Yeah.
Perfectly legal. And so is taking in unlimited contributions. Don't get me wrong. It's legal.
Yep.
But voters have said, hey, look, we really want this stuff. And it really makes sense to us. And I'm just letting people know that there's a loophole. And if you thought that was there, it's not there at this level of government. And I think it makes sense to mirror that.
Right.
And I could see legislature making some changes in the future, and let's just mirror it. Let's just copy it, go up and down. So
why not?
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And it levels the playing field as well. Because you have people that are in county office that might run for a state office. That'd be playing by the same rules. And if you're in a state office, you want to run for a county office, you're playing by the same rules. So it opens some questions too. I mean, if you're taking unlimited contributions for one race, and you're going to now go into a race where you can't take unlimited contributions, you could really run the bill up on collecting money and then say, I'm going to go run. And that's not right.
Right. And you could pretty well bankroll the rest of your life on political contributions, I guess one would imagine.
Well, yes. And if you look at certain campaign finance reports, I can show you some examples.
Yeah. And we are unfortunately aware of many of those things. We've been visiting today with Doug Ervin. He is a candidate for Eastern Commissioner of Clay County, which the election would be just about a year from now, a little less than a year from now. So you're getting started early. I guess this, of course, we asked you to come on the show here. You didn't come knocking on our door or ringing us up to say, hey, I want to get on here and campaign. That really, frankly, I just want to be transparent here that it's about, we want to talk about what's going on and make sure that the folks are aware of the things that I think we've been reading about and hearing about, and not just here locally in Kearney. The Kansas City Star and newspapers and news sources throughout the state of Missouri, and as you pointed out, the folks down in Jefferson City did I guess, sort of a collective eye roll when you introduced yourself as being from Clay County, which is kind of sad and kind of funny on one side. But
I was on business in St. Louis a couple of months ago, and if you've paid attention to what's going on in St. Louis, they've got some problems of their own.
Right.
And I had somebody come up to me and say, "What is going on in Clay County?" And they're from St. Louis. I said, "How in the world would you know what's going on in Clay County?" He said, "It's in our papers here." And I'm thinking, with all that you've got going on, you just ousted the county executive.
Right.
And you're still reading about Clay County?
Yeah.
Come on.
It's a bit of a spectacle, no doubt.
It is, and it's a little bit sad. And I got a message just a few seconds ago, so I will address this. Someone asked, would we allow Nicole Galloway to come on the show and talk about the audit? So the answer to that is obviously yes, absolutely we would. As full, transparency, disclosure, anything they're allowed to talk about, be glad to have them on the program.
Works for me. Great having you here, Doug.
Thank you very much.
Wish you all the best of luck in your campaigning, and thanks so much for shining a little more light of truth on all that's going on here in Clay County. We appreciate you. We appreciate you as listeners, and we appreciate all the folks at Kearney Trust Company for sponsoring this program, and I hope you come back. We'll be here next week. We'll see you then. Thanks for listening to Kearney Live.